Comfort never arrives as an enemy. It enters quietly, like a friend with warm hands and soft words. It tells you that you've earned the right to rest, that you've already done enough, that peace means staying where you are. You start to build your routines around it. The same path to work, the same seat, the same screens glowing every night. Everything predictable, everything controlled. The days begin to blend together like echoes of a song you've forgotten the lyrics to. Nothing's wrong. And that's exactly what makes it dangerous. Comfort doesn't destroy you suddenly. It seduces you slowly. It trades your hunger for peace, your ambition for ease, your curiosity for control. You stop chasing the unknown, not because you've conquered it, but because you've learned how to avoid it. You call that wisdom, but it's really fear in disguise. You tell yourself you're just being practical. You call it stability. You say you're protecting your peace. But deep down, you know peace isn't the absence of challenge. It's the presence of purpose. And without purpose, even peace becomes hollow. The cage of comfort is not made of steel. It's made of habits. Habits that promise safety but steal growth. Habits that keep you warm but numb your fire. Habits that make you feel in control while quietly taking control of you. You start to forget what risk feels like. Your pulse no longer races. Your mind no longer dreams beyond the walls you've built. And one day, without noticing, you stop living. You start maintaining. The wise once said that the greatest enemy of faith is not doubt but comfort, because comfort convinces you that you no longer need faith. You stop depending on grace, stop trusting in unseen paths, stop walking toward anything that requires courage. You stay still and call it maturity. Comfort whispers that you've arrived, but it never tells you that you've stopped. It tells you that rest is peace, but it never tells you that rest without movement becomes decay. It gives you the illusion of control by taking away your capacity to change. And so, the life that once pulsed with curiosity begins to flatten. You exchange the thrill of discovery for the predictability of repetition. You live in loops, safe, familiar, silent loops, until you forget that freedom was supposed to feel alive. The tragedy of comfort is that it doesn't hurt. Pain wakes you up. Comfort lulls you to sleep. You never notice the moment you become captive because the prison is soft, the bars are invisible, and the guard is your own fear of discomfort. Every dream begins to shrink. The first thing comfort kills is curiosity. You stop asking questions that have no easy answers. You stop exploring paths that don't guarantee results. You learn to stay where the light is familiar, where the outcomes are predictable, where you can't fail. And because of that, you stop truly living. Desire begins to weaken. The fire that once made you restless for meaning now flickers behind the walls of routine. You tell yourself you're content, but it's not contentment. It's containment. Your soul isn't peaceful. It's sedated. You start confusing peace with boredom, maturity with apathy, wisdom with caution. You no longer chase what moves you. You manage what maintains you. You stop trusting in divine surprises because you've built a schedule that leaves no room for miracles. Faith, once alive and wild, becomes domesticated. You only trust what you can plan, only believe what you can predict. You start editing your prayers to fit your comfort zone. You ask for safety instead of transformation, for blessing without breaking, for light without heat. But faith was never meant to be safe. It was meant to stretch you, to pull you out of the boat and into the storm, to remind you that you were made for waves, not walls. Every story of wisdom begins with discomfort, every miracle with disruption. The ancient voices knew this truth. They warned that comfort blinds the heart. The people who stop wandering start worshipping their own security. They forget that manna never falls where there is no hunger, and new life never grows where the soil refuses to be broken. You begin to notice that the safest places are often the most silent. There's no laughter, no risk, no wonder, just repetition. You realize you've built a temple of comfort, but left the spirit outside. You've become a caretaker of predictability, not a seeker of purpose. Comfort teaches you how to survive without faith. You no longer need to trust because you no longer step into anything uncertain. You stop saying yes to the unknown and start saying maybe later to destiny. But later is the favorite word of fear. The worst part is how natural it feels. You tell yourself that you're being responsible, wise, even spiritual. But deep down, a small voice still whispers, "This is not life, this is maintenance." And that voice is your soul begging for discomfort again. You remember every cage, no matter how elegant, eventually becomes unbearable. The walls you once called home begin to whisper reminders of everything you've ignored. The stillness that once soothed you now feels suffocating. What you thought was peace begins to sound like silence, and silence begins to feel like loss. You start to sense something stirring, not loud, not violent, but steady, a quiet ache beneath your routines. You can't name it, but it feels like longing. It's the soul remembering it was meant to move. It's the divine restlessness that shakes you awake when you've slept too long in comforter's arms. You begin to notice small things, how the days look identical, how your prayers sound recycled, how your joy feels rehearsed. You realize you've been repeating life, not living it. You've been existing efficiently, but not evolving purposefully. One day, you catch yourself saying, "There must be more." The words come out softly, almost like a confession, and in that moment, something shifts. The moment you admit that you're not fulfilled, the walls of your comfort begin to crack. Restlessness is not rebellion, it's resurrection. It's your spirit reminding you that safety was never your destiny. The same God who calms storms also calls you into them. The same hand that comforts also challenges. Growth always begins with disturbance. You start to feel conviction more than contentment, not guilt, but an awareness that your life has become too quiet for your calling. You begin to ask harder questions. When did I stop growing? When did I mistake rest for retreat? When did comfort become my king? You see now that the world has built an altar to comfort. It preaches that ease is success, that risk is foolishness, that discomfort means failure. But every prophet, every saint, every story of transformation began with a no to comfort and a yes to calling. You realize that the most dangerous prison is the one that feels like peace. It's the job that pays well, but drains your soul. The relationship that feels safe but keeps you small. The habits that numb you instead of nurture you. Safety is not always sanctified. Sometimes it's just seduction in disguise. Restlessness becomes a holy disruption. You stop fearing it and start following it. You start listening to that divine unease that calls you towards something unknown, because maybe the discomfort you've been avoiding is actually the doorway to your destiny. You begin to see discomfort differently, not as punishment, but as invitation. Every challenge becomes a chance to grow. Every risk becomes a form of worship. You start to understand that faith without discomfort is fiction. The fire returns slowly. You start dreaming again, not recklessly but faithfully. You begin to trade predictability for purpose, safety for surrender. You feel alive again, not because life got easier, but because you stopped running from what makes it meaningful. The awakening doesn't happen all at once. It's gradual, gentle. It does the moment you realize that God never meant for your life to be easy, only full, and fullness can't be found inside a cage, no matter how comfortable it feels. When you finally step outside the cage, the air feels different, colder, uncertain, alive. You look back at the walls that once felt like peace and realize they were just padded fear. The silence that once seemed sacred was actually the absence of courage. You breathe deeply for the first time in years. It burns a little, but it's real. The first steps are always shaky. Freedom doesn't come with guarantees, it comes with gravity. Every choice feels heavier because it matters again. You've re-entered the world of risk, of faith, of unknown outcomes, and with every tremble of your soul, you rediscover what it means to be human. The discomfort you feared becomes your teacher. It sharpens your focus, humbles your ego, and deepens your gratitude. You start to see pain, not as an interruption, but as initiation. Growth is supposed to stretch you. That's how you know it's working. You begin to crave meaning more than comfort. You start choosing effort over ease, purpose over pleasure. You find beauty in exhaustion because it reminds you that you are moving towards something bigger than yourself. Comfort kept you safe, but purpose makes you alive. The wise once said that a seed must break before it grows. You think of that as you look at your life. The cracks, the losses, the discomforts. They were never punishments, they were preparations. Every pressure you resisted was shaping the roots of your future strength. You begin to find joy in uncertainty. It doesn't scare you anymore. You see now that faith was never about control, it was about trust. You stop demanding clarity and start seeking conviction. You no longer need to know the outcome, you just need to know the direction. The world around you still sells comfort, still glorifies ease, still mocks risk, but you've seen too much to go back. You've tasted the emptiness of safety and the fullness of surrender. You'd rather fail in purpose than succeed in complacency. Discomfort becomes your compass. Whenever life feels too predictable, you know it's time to grow again. You stop worshipping stability and start honoring growth. You stop praying for safety and start praying for strength.